Oh boy, here we go again. The notorious National Enquirer says presidential candidate Ted Cruz has had multiple affairs. This is the same tabloid that first reported philandering by other big-name politicians, Gary Hart, Jesse Jackson, and John Edwards. Once again, the question is, will any mainstream media dig into the potential bombshell or leave the muckraking to the Enquirer?
This week's edition of the National Enquirer has a shocking claim that Republican presidential candidate Ted Cruz has had 5 mistresses. Of course, this is the same tabloid that recently reported the shocking claim that Justice Antonin Scalia was poisoned to death by a CIA prostitute. Then again,
a married former senator, a blonde mystery woman, a late-night sting at a hotel, all leading to this shocking tabloid cover story.
That shocking claim turned out to be true. John Edwards fathered a love child with his campaign videographer. At the time, no mainstream press touched the story until after it was confirmed by the Enquirer and John Edwards. Same with the Jesse Jackson love story.
There's news of another sex scandal.
This week's Enquirer story comes just as Ted Cruz and Donald Trump are going at it over inappropriate tweets about their wives.
Donald, you're a sniveling coward, and leave Heidi the hell alone.
Then, in a bizarre moment this afternoon, CNN had Boston Herald columnist Adriana Cohen on set, along with CNN political commentator Amanda Carpenter, one of the women named in the Cruz affair. CNN anchor Kate Baldwin did not bring it up, but Cohen did.
I would like Ted Cruz to issue a statement whether or not the National Enquirer story is true, that he has had affairs with many women, including you were named, Amanda. Will you denounce this story?
Cohen was asking the questions Baldwin should have asked.
It is categorically false. You should be ashamed for spreading this kind of smut. I'm going to be much more comfortable talking about a National Enquirer report when CNN has done some reporting on that topic.
Let's see if they do.
Well, then another shoe dropped this afternoon as Ted Cruz publicly denounced the National Enquirer story as nothing more than a political dirty trick.
This garbage does not belong in politics. The CEO of the National Enquirer is an individual named David Pecker. Well, David is good friends with Donald Trump. They have a friendship that goes back for many years. In fact, the National Enquirer has endorsed Donald Trump.
Of course, this is the springboard. This is all the national media needs to deal with this because Ted Cruz responded to it, so it's all over the news tonight. The question is, though, will they dig any further to find out whether the allegations are true? That was not the case, certainly with John Edwards and with some of the previous stories. I mean, you're right that the Miami Herald did the big takeout on Gary Hart. The National Enquirer was the first to print the photograph with Donna Rice, so that's sort of like, that was the proof they needed. The question, what do you think, Callie? Will the mainstream press dig deeper?
Yes, and because we are all Kardashians in this time now. Now, there is a legitimate journalistic reason to dig deeper, and that is Ted Cruz's avowed stance as a family person and family values. Otherwise, as nosy as I can be, I would say this is nobody's business, even if he were. But because he has taken such a strong, firm stand on this is who I am and these are the policies that I believe should inform other policies, then I think there is some legitimate reason to do it. Now, how it's approached, obviously, I think it should be very much different than the National Enquirer has gone about it.
Can I hop in here? Because I have like 10 different points I want to make. All right, the first is the Enquirer didn't actually come out and say Ted Cruz has had an affair with these 5 women. It said he's the target of a dirty tricks campaign. It quoted an unnamed political operative saying, these are outrageous claims, but people are looking into them. So it left itself plausible deniability, I'm sure, in case Ted Cruz decides he wants to sue the paper for libel. It didn't say that he'd slept with these women. It said people are looking into these shocking claims, which could be the demise of his campaign, which is pretty sleazy. I think the press should be, among other things, looking into whether it's at all passes the smell test that Donald Trump had nothing to do with this. Exactly. As he claims. Ted Cruz is right. Donald Trump is tight with the CEO of the Enquirer. They've done all sorts of, nasty coverage of people he's running against. They've let him write a self-authored piece about how wonderful he is. And then finally, I really disagree with you about the takeaway from watching Adriana Cohen from the Herald going at it with Amanda Carpenter on CNN. I was creeped out and was creeped out again when I saw the gleam in her eye. Go back and watch the video where she's saying, Amanda, you were named in this. She looks like she is a jackal about to devour a carcass.
CNN either should have not had Amanda Carpenter on tonight or they should have brought it up themselves. That was chicken. And I give Adriana Cohen a lot of credit for bringing that up. That
There's
was not
ways
easy.
to there's ways to
Yeah,
bring it
I
up,
agree.
and there's ways not to.
CNN was going to ignore it, and they could not ignore it. Her name is out there now.
Well, I think it's hard when you haven't done your own reporting, and
That's
CNN
true.
hasn't done any
Then
reporting.
don't put her
on
on
it.
the air.
Well, okay, I think that's a fair point. I think one of the most important aspects of this, and you brought this up, Callie, is who deserves this kind of treatment? And so you do kind of look for a hypocrisy angle. And without saying whether the story about Ted Cruz is true or not, there is a hypocrisy angle here because he has been so strong as a family values candidate, very anti-gay and lesbian. So in that respect, he is fair game. The other thing, and all I'm doing here is agreeing with you, Callie, and you too, Adam, I think that where this came from is at least as important as the story itself. Right. And I think that we have to say that there ought to be a really strong investigation into whether Donald J. Trump was behind this.
He denies that. He did tweet out this afternoon.
I think we also will be taking quite a look at the National Enquirer because the National Enquirer, of course, is riding on its own coattails here from those other cases that we talked about, including the most famous case, which was the 2009 disclosures about John Edwards, for which it submitted its entry for a Pulitzer Prize, which got
They said it was a magazine, not a newspaper, didn't qualify.
Well, they did, but then they changed their mind. They allowed it to be reviewed, and that's something that I wrote about at the time, and the thing that was fascinating about that, I think, was that it really wasn't sourced, like this story. And it's not sourced, and yet a step removed from an accusation as well. The John Edwards report was in fact an accusation, but it never was sourced, and I think that's what got in the way of its winning a Pulitzer.
As we talk about the provenance of this story, it's worth noting that the Enquirer quoted Roger Stone, the former Trump advisor, saying, "Oh, this is very bad. Oh, I think this is going to hurt Ted Cruz with evangelical Christians," which again, if
that's
you're
the guy who was
connecting
kicked
the dots-
off.
Remember, the
CNN
New York
too.
Times did the same thing with that John McCain takeout, that big profile they did. With sources say and staffers think they had an inappropriate relationship with a high place.
Concerns that it might appear inappropriate, right?
Never let him respond in any meaningful way. Well, stay tuned for this one. That's all I can say.